In a world cloaked in deception, the truth often emerges as our most potent weapon against manipulation. Truth over Ego, Unmasking Narcissistic Behavior Early, isn't merely a guide. It's your essential companion on a harrowing journey through the unseen landscapes of psychological control. This book unveils the insidious tactics of narcissistic behavior that lurk beneath charming facades, challenging you to confront the veiled threats that impede your personal growth. Are you ready to shatter illusions and reclaim your emotional strength? Join us in this exploration and awaken the fighter within. Truth over Ego, Unmasking Narcissistic Behavior Early, written and published by Stealth Psychology. Chapter 1. The Illusion of Charm. Spot the mask, in a vibrant social gathering where laughter echoes through the air. In the center of attention stands a charismatic figure, effortlessly drawing everyone into their orbit. With a mesmerizing smile and a confidence that seems magnetic, they flit from person to person, exuding warmth and charm. Yet, beneath this captivating exterior lies a chilling reality, a manipulator orchestrating interactions with calculated precision. As the evening unfolds, what seems like simple banter conceals a more sinister agenda. This individual thrives on emotional control, seeking to ensnare others in a web spun from charm and allure. The manipulator's ultimate goal is often disguised by a veil of affection, leading victims to mistakenly believe they are forging genuine connections. Yet the reality is starkly different. These relationships are veiled tactics meant to exploit vulnerabilities, extract compliance, or achieve an envious sense of superiority. Like a spider awaiting its prey, the manipulator uses their charm as bait, crafting a facade of safety and support that lures victims into complacency. It's all too common for individuals ensnared in such dynamics to overlook the creeping sense of discomfort, instead convincing themselves that the manipulator's actions stem from genuine care. As friends become increasingly apprehensive about the manipulator's influence, dismissing their concerns as mere jealousy or misunderstanding, the psychological entrapment deepens. These victims often enter a state of denial, dismissing red flags while clinging to the appealing aspects of their connection. The manipulator capitalizes on this blindness, using the very tactics of charm and charisma to disarm skepticism, focusing on emotional reassurance to divert suspicion. Consequently, victims find themselves ensnared in an intricate dance, unaware of the darkness that festers just beneath the surface. However, the illusion of charm isn't merely benign. It serves a crucial purpose: to mask manipulation and control. The manipulator deftly navigates social dynamics, pitting individuals against one another and orchestrating isolation to consolidate their power. By fostering distrust among peers and creating an environment rife with uncertainty, they effectively neutralize the potential for resistance. Before long, the victim may find themselves isolated from once trusted friends and family, left defenseless against the manipulator's tactics. It is in this isolation that the true extent of emotional control is revealed, often only recognized when it is nearly too late. A sense of urgency swells within as victims begin to grasp the extent of their predicament. The convoluted layers of charm that once shielded them from the truth now serve as a suffocating blanket, tangling them further in a web of deceit. Those trapped within such relationships often wrestle with conflicting emotions. Guilt, confusion, and allegiance swirl within, complicating their path to liberation. It becomes imperative to unveil the mask, to recognize that charm can cloak intentions that are far from benevolent. The journey to understanding this type of manipulation begins with self-reflection and a willingness to confront the unease simmering beneath the surface. Recognizing charm as a dual-edged sword is crucial. In doing so, individuals can start to dismantle the facade and reclaim their emotional autonomy. As you venture into this exploration, keep in mind that you are not alone. Many silently grapple with the complexity of manipulative relationships, often believing they are extraordinary exceptions. This chapter serves as your guide to seeing through the illusion of charm. Empower, educate, and uncover the hidden truths that lie in the intricate bond between manipulation and emotional control. The impact of charm as a manipulative tool can be profound, shaping not only emotions but also decision-making processes, interpersonal relationships, and self-esteem. When immersed in a charming manipulator's presence, one often experiences a euphoric sense of connection. This emotional high, however, masks deeper vulnerabilities. Psychological research indicates that individuals attuned to emotional cues are more susceptible to manipulation. For instance, studies show that when someone feels emotionally bonded to another person, their judgment may become clouded, causing them to overlook concerning behaviors that would otherwise raise red flags. The manipulator's charm can easily sway emotions, leading victims to make choices they wouldn't normally consider, often resulting in life-altering consequences. Consider the case of Sarah, a bright and ambitious professional who fell under the spell of her charming boss. Initially, his charismatic demeanor captivated her. He praised her work lavishly while skillfully undermining her confidence behind closed doors. Over time, Sarah found herself shaped by a distorted narrative that framed her as reliant on her boss for validation and success. The emotional roller coaster left her questioning her competencies, and her decision-making became increasingly influenced by her need for his approval. Rather than thriving in an empowering workplace, Sarah grappled with crippling self-doubt and anxiety, blinded by the charm she had once found magnetic. This pattern is not isolated. It plays out in relationships across various contexts, magnifying the influence of narcissistic behavior in personal and professional domains. Many individuals like Sarah find themselves ensnared in a cycle of idealization followed by devaluation. A psychological phenomenon known as love bombing illustrates this transformative impact. Initially, manipulators shower their targets with affection and attention, forging a seemingly unbreakable bond. However, once the emotional dependence solidifies, their affection wanes, creating an emotional tug-of-war that leaves victims feeling insecure and uncertain. Individuals become profoundly attached to the highs of the charming encounters, often dismissing the subsequent emotional lows as mere misunderstandings. The toll on self-esteem is particularly alarming. Victims may internalize the manipulator's negative messages, leading to a skewed self-image and a growing sense of inadequacy. Research suggests that manipulation can cause severe disruptions in one's self-concept, ultimately eroding personal agency. Victims may also begin to isolate themselves from friends and family, perceiving support networks as potential threats to the glamorous, albeit toxic, relationship they are entangled in. This isolation serves to amplify the manipulator's control, further entrenching the victim in the relationship's disorienting dynamics. Understanding why individuals succumb to such manipulation requires delving into the nuances of human psychology. Our innate desire for connection and validation can blind us to the red flags that are present. Charm can be intoxicating, and in societies that often celebrate charisma over substance, many find themselves falling for an alluring facade that masks harmful behaviors. The illusion of charm becomes a potent addiction, feeding off our insecurities while stifling our growth. As we transition into the next section, it becomes crucial to equip ourselves with knowledge that enables us to identify the subtle yet vital warning signs of manipulation. The signs often remain beneath our awareness, hidden amid the interplay of charm and control. Stay tuned as we delve deeper into the psyche of the manipulator and uncover the overlooked signals that could safeguard you from falling prey to their toxic allure. Manipulators are adept at identifying their targets with a keen intuition for vulnerability. Typically, they focus on individuals who display traits such as low self-esteem, strong empathetic tendencies, or a significant need for approval. This psychic radar allows them to zero in on those most susceptible to their charm. Consider the case of Mark, a dedicated volunteer at a local charity who had long struggled with feelings of inadequacy. A charismatic philanthropist began expressing deep interest in Mark's ideas, showering him with praise and attention. Initially, Mark was flattered and grateful for the validation. However, unbeknownst to him, the philanthropist saw an opportunity, intending to leverage Mark's passion to further their own agenda. Psychological manipulation often unfolds in predictable patterns. Once a target is identified, manipulators will frequently employ strategies designed to disarm and gain trust. They may engage in what psychologists refer to as future faking, where they create an illusion of shared values or future aspirations that align with the target's dreams. In Mark's case, the philanthropist not only praised his ambitions, but also painted a picture of partnership, Together, they would make substantial impacts in the community. This created a false sense of belonging, solidifying Mark's emotional investment without ever revealing the manipulator's true interests. As the relationship evolves, subtle psychological shifts become apparent, often unnoticed by the victim. Initially, every interaction offers latent joy and reassurance, fostering a sense of safety. Gradually, however, this dynamic begins to warp. The manipulator may employ tactics of emotional unpredictability, oscillating between warmth and coldness. Mark experienced this firsthand. After weeks of what felt like meaningful collaboration, the philanthropist's attentiveness would give way to dismissive comments. This created an emotional turmoil that made Mark yearn for the earlier praise, forcing him into a cycle of chasing approval and validation. The emotional climate of manipulation also breeds dependence. This shift is often gradual, with the target beginning to alter their behavior to align with the manipulator's demands. In Mark's case, he started to compromise his own ideas or refrain from speaking up during discussions, second-guessing his own insights for fear of rejection. This internal struggle is indicative of a broader phenomenon known as cognitive dissonance, where conflicting beliefs create psychological discomfort. The target may find themselves rationalizing the manipulator's behavior to resolve this dissonance, further solidifying their emotional bond to the very person who is undermining their confidence. In another scenario, Julia, a college student known for her industrious nature, fell prey to a peer who appeared charismatic but was in reality seeking control over her assignments and academic efforts. Initially, he cleverly positioned himself as a mentor, providing guidance while subtly implying that Julia needed his expertise to succeed. This created a dependency that made Julia less sure of her capabilities, leading her to withdraw from study groups and her network of friends. The manipulator skillfully exploited her ambition, crafting a veneer of collaboration that masked his ulterior motives. Understanding these tactics becomes crucial for self-defense against emotional exploitation. The subtle cues manipulators employ, targeting vulnerabilities, implementing emotional inconsistency, and fostering dependency, are not mere happenstance. They reflect a methodical approach to ensnaring potential victims in cycles of emotional turmoil and dependence. Recognizing these patterns in our own experiences is essential to breaking free from manipulative entanglements. As we move to the next chapter, we will delve deeper into the escalation of control that ensnares victims, exploring how these dynamics can entrap individuals in a seemingly inescapable cycle of manipulation. Breaking free from the insidious grasp of dark psychological tactics requires a resolute commitment to reclaiming your emotional autonomy. The first practical counter-strategy is to cultivate unwavering trust in your instincts. Often, the tactics employed by manipulators thrive in the murky waters of uncertainty and self-doubt, making it essential to regain clarity. Begin by acknowledging any discomfort, confusion, or unease you may feel in your interactions. These feelings serve as vital signals, alerting you to underlying imbalances and prompting you to question motives. Keep a journal to document encounters, noting specific exchanges that trigger doubt. This record not only validates your emotions, but enables you to analyze patterns, fostering a clearer understanding of the dynamics at play. As you embark on this journey of self-discovery, it's crucial to establish firm boundaries. Setting limits on behavior, both yours and the manipulator's, profoundly shifts the dynamics of your relationship. For example, if the person in question responds with passive-aggressive comments, make it clear that such communication is unacceptable. Communicating your needs assertively helps dissolve the manipulator's ability to maintain control, fostering an environment where mutual respect can flourish. You may initially feel resistance. Manipulators often react defensively when their tactics are confronted. However, firm boundaries can serve as a powerful deterrent, ultimately encouraging healthier interactions. Recovering your sense of clarity also entails actively evaluating your social network. Surrounding yourself with supportive individuals who respect your feelings and choices can be transformative. Engage in open discussions with trusted friends or family regarding your experiences, which not only helps to validate your perspective, but also provides an additional layer of accountability. These conversations may unearth insights that empower you, reinforcing your resolve to disengage from manipulative dynamics. Another essential strategy is developing your emotional literacy, allowing you to recognize and articulate your feelings accurately. Meditation and mindfulness practices can foster this skill, equipping you to stay present and grounded. A heightened emotional awareness enables nuanced responses that resist the pull of manipulation. For instance, rather than automatically conforming to a manipulator's demands out of fear or obligation, you will be positioned to respond with clarity and assertiveness, reinforcing your autonomy. This practice not only fortifies your mental state, but lays a robust foundation for future interactions, enabling you to break free from damaging cycles of manipulation. As we conclude this chapter, it's crucial to understand that empowerment lies in awareness and action. The realization that you possess the tools to counter manipulation marks the beginning of your liberation. The psychological tactics that once ensnared you are now laid bare, and with this knowledge, you can navigate future interactions with confidence. Prepare yourself for the next chapter, where we will delve into the disturbing patterns of escalation that can ensnare victims in an ongoing cycle of control. Recognizing these cycles is integral to your journey of empowerment, and understanding the escalatory dynamics allows you to safeguard your emotional health. Remember, as you engage with the material ahead, you have the power to define your relationships and reclaim your narrative. To sustain this journey, consider subscribing to Stealth Psychology, leaving a like, or sharing your thoughts and suggestions for further development of this vital dialogue. Once you grasp these tactics, you will never again be held captive by their influence. Chapter 2: Behind the Facade. Decoding Subtle Manipulation. Picture a scenario in a bustling workplace where a seemingly amiable colleague constantly volunteers for group projects. Wielding an affable smile and an engaging demeanor, they quickly become the go-to person for teamwork. While their overt enthusiasm appears genuine, a more insidious agenda lurks beneath the surface. This individual skillfully employs manipulation to gain influence and control over their peers, subtly steering conversations and decisions in their favor. The ultimate goal often revolves around emotional control, rendering others dependent on them for approval or validation, while the manipulator elegantly conceals their ulterior motives behind a charming facade. Many individuals unwittingly fall into this trap, believing they have found a supportive ally. The charm and warmth that accompany the manipulative behavior initially create a false sense of camaraderie, drawing victims into a web of compliance and self-doubt. In the workplace, for instance, this colleague might flood group discussions with praise and encouragement, cultivating a false sense of comfort. However, as the relationship develops, they begin to guide discussions subtly, allowing their thoughts and opinions to overshadow those of others. Unbeknownst to their colleagues, they are becoming pawns in a game designed to bolster the manipulator's status at the expense of authentic collaboration. Victims often fail to recognize the extent of their entrapment until the emotional costs become too steep. The camaraderie initially offered by the manipulator gives way to a subtle form of dominance, often exacerbating a sense of insecurity among others. Take, for example, Julia, a junior employee who admired her colleagues' attentiveness. Over time, she found herself increasingly reliant on their approval, often deferring her own ideas in conversations for fear of criticism. The high praise, often given in small doses, created dependency, a vicious cycle whereby Julia measured her self-worth against the positive feedback of her colleague, ultimately underestimating her own contributions. The more manipulative individuals master their art, the more cleverly they camouflage their tactics, making it difficult for victims to realize the dynamics at play. Subtle shifts occur as the manipulator escalates the pressure. Flattering comments transition slowly into commentaries on competence, framing the message so that the victim is left with a lingering sense of doubt. This emotional roller coaster can distort one's perception of reality, as victims struggle to reconcile the charm they once found alluring with the unsettling manipulation that quietly creeps in. As these interactions unfold, the manipulator leverages timing and emotional needs to maximize their impact. They can capitalize on a victim's vulnerabilities, using moments of personal crisis or low self-esteem to solidify their control. In Julia's case, the manipulative colleague exploited her anxiety during challenging project deadlines, offering a shoulder to lean on while demanding more and more credit. This imbalance leaves the victim disoriented, questioning their capabilities, while the manipulator emerges as the savior, further entrenching their influence. Understanding this process is essential in revealing the hidden truth behind such manipulation tactics. Recognizing the subtleties of a manipulator's strategies leads to the illumination of the power dynamics at play and fosters the awareness necessary for reclaiming autonomy. As we navigate through the complexities of human interaction, it's vital to remind ourselves that being charming is not inherently negative. It becomes a problem when that charm conceals an agenda designed to exploit. The journey to untangle oneself from these dynamics begins with vigilance, and acknowledging the signs can significantly alter the course of personal and professional relationships. The effects of subtle manipulation extend far beyond immediate interactions. They seep deeply into an individual's emotions, decision-making processes, relationships, and overall self-esteem. As the manipulative dance unfolds, victims often find themselves on an emotional roller coaster, oscillating between fleeting highs of validation and profound lows of self-doubt. This volatile emotional landscape can lead individuals to question their worth and distort their perceptions of reality as they grapple with the conflicting messages delivered by the manipulator. Psychological research underscores how such emotional uncertainty can create an environment ripe for exploitation as victims become disoriented and increasingly reliant on the manipulator for affirmation and support. Take the case of Eric, a talented graphic designer whose relationship with a charming yet manipulative colleague, Jordan, ultimately eroded his confidence. Initially, Eric was inspired by Jordan's apparent creativity and charisma. However, over time, Jordan began to subtly undermine Eric's decisions by positioning his own ideas as superior through manipulative praise. At the heart of this manipulation was a chilling tactic of sowing doubt, as Jordan would often question Eric's insights about projects, framing them as mere suggestions rather than valid contributions. This dynamic disrupted Eric's decision-making, causing him to second-guess himself and accept feedback that was not constructive but rather derisive under the guise of mentorship. Such dynamics can have a pronounced effect on relationships as well. Manipulators are skilled at fostering an atmosphere of dependency, which can leave individuals feeling isolated and alienated from their broader social support networks. Victims like Eric may withdraw from friends and family, perceiving their relationships as sources of competition rather than refuge. The dependency developed on the manipulator for validation directly impacts self-esteem, as the fluctuating approval received from them becomes an unhealthy benchmark against which individuals measure their worth. Consequently, victims may find themselves in a vicious cycle, grappling with declining self-esteem while simultaneously striving to please the instigators of their insecurity. Numerous psychological studies corroborate these effects, revealing how social comparison and the desire for approval breed vulnerability to manipulation. Psychologically, individuals who are highly empathic or those with pronounced anxiety tend to be more susceptible to falling prey to manipulative behaviors. The need for connection and approval overrides their instinct to resist. This intrinsic desire often clouds judgment and blinds victims to the unhealthy undercurrents present in their relationships. The impact can be devastating, as individuals may come to normalize manipulative behavior, believing erroneously that constant approval-seeking is acceptable or even necessary for personal and professional success. This pervasive emotional turmoil creates a cycle, perpetuating the need for affirmation from a questionable source. Understanding this cycle of emotional and psychological deterioration is critical for the individual who wishes to reclaim their agency. However, before one can begin that journey, recognition is imperative. As we progress into the next section of this chapter, we will unveil the hidden warning signs of manipulation that linger just beneath the surface of everyday interactions, signs that many overlook in their quest for connection and acceptance. Identifying these subtle cues is the first step in breaking free from the insidious grip of manipulation. empowering readers to reclaim clarity and confidence in their relationships. It is through awareness that we can fortify ourselves against the emotional repercussions of these tactics, ensuring that we do not become mere pawns in the manipulator's game. Recognizing the signs of subtle manipulation can illuminate the path toward liberation, granting us the strength to thrive beyond the masks that often conceal deception. Manipulators possess a keen ability to identify their targets, often honing in on individuals who exhibit certain psychological traits. They typically seek out people who display vulnerability, such as low self-esteem, an overwhelming need for approval, or those struggling with personal insecurities. These traits create a fertile ground for manipulation, where the manipulator can exploit the target's weaknesses with surgical precision. For instance, consider the case of Mia, a new employee in a competitive office environment. From the outset, her charismatic colleague, Tina, sensed Mia's eagerness to fit in and win approval. Observing her shy demeanor, Tina quickly determined that Mia would be an ideal target for her manipulative tactics. As the relationship began, Tina cultivated an image of the supportive coworker, offering seemingly genuine mentorship. She frequently complimented Mia's work while gradually introducing subtle criticisms phrased as constructive feedback. This maneuvering made Tina appear like an ally while simultaneously lowering Mia's confidence. The manipulation took shape as Mia began to doubt her capabilities, inching further into a psychological dependency on Tina's validation. This cycle highlights a critical aspect of manipulation: the gradual erosion of one's self-perception, allowing the manipulator to maintain control without raising immediate suspicion. The psychological shifts during these interactions often go unnoticed until the victim finds themselves fully entrenched in the relationship. When Mia initially joined the team, she was enthusiastic and confident in her abilities. However, after months of small, seemingly innocuous alterations in Tina's feedback, Mia's perception of herself began to shift dramatically. The faint glimmers of doubt instilled by Tina's comments transformed into a pervasive sense of inadequacy. Slowly, Mia learned to seek Tina's approval before making any decision, leading her to compromise her original ideas and insights. This psychological manipulation is subtle but powerful, demonstrating how an initially supportive relationship can morph into one rife with underlying control. In another scenario, James, a college student, found himself captivated by the charm of a fellow student who was also the leader of a campus organization. This individual, Lisa, recognized that James was striving to improve his social standing, quickly befriending him. However, Lisa's charm masked her ulterior motives. She subtly positioned herself as a gatekeeper to social circles that James yearned to enter. Through an artful blend of praise and disparagement, she stealthily engineered situations where James felt he could not participate in activities unless sanctioned by her. As a result, James began to navigate his social life according to Lisa's whims, losing the autonomy he once enjoyed in his relationships. Understanding how manipulators operate invokes a sense of urgency in recognizing the signs of their tactics. The ability to identify these patterns in our own experiences is paramount for self-defense. Becoming aware of shifts in how we view ourselves and the dependence we foster on others for validation is crucial in reclaiming our narrative and emotional strength. As we conclude this section, it is essential to recognize that grasping the tactics of manipulation is the first vital step toward resistance. The more aware we are of how manipulators identify their targets and the subtle psychological shifts enacted through manipulation, the better equipped we become to protect ourselves from falling victim to such dynamics. The ensuing part of this chapter will delve deeper into the escalation of control tactics manipulators employ, revealing how victims can become ensnared in cycles that are increasingly difficult to escape. Understanding these dynamics is critical for anyone seeking to maintain healthy, supportive relationships, devoid of exploitation and control. Breaking free from the shackles of dark psychological tactics requires deliberate action and a steadfast commitment to reclaiming one's autonomy. A profound counter-strategy involves learning to trust your instincts and actively engage in self-reflection to unravel the uncertainty that manipulators thrive on. The first step toward liberation is acknowledging the discomfort and doubt that arise during interactions with a manipulator. This requires a conscious effort to pause and assess your feelings. Are you feeling overly anxious or unsure after conversations? Do comments that should be encouraging leave you feeling diminished? These reactions are critical cues indicating that something is amiss. To facilitate this self-reflective process, maintain a journal dedicated to tracking interactions with manipulative individuals. Document your feelings, reactions, and any thoughts that arise post-encounter. Over time, patterns may emerge, crystallizing your understanding of the manipulator's influence on your emotional state. For example, after conversations with a manipulative colleague, you might notice recurring feelings of inadequacy or a lingering self-doubt. Recognizing these patterns is vital for regaining control, as it allows you to step back from emotional entanglement and clarify your own thoughts and feelings. Another essential aspect of this strategy is regaining clarity through boundary setting. Establishing firm boundaries communicates that you refuse to tolerate manipulative behavior. Consider what behaviors are acceptable to you and what cannot be overlooked. For instance, if a colleague frequently dismisses your ideas in meetings, practice asserting yourself by stating that you would like your contributions to be respected. Clear and direct communication not only reinforces your self-respect, but diminishes the manipulator's control over you. Often, just the act of asserting yourself can create a shift in the dynamic, prompting the manipulator to reevaluate their tactics. Trusting your instincts also involves a willingness to seek external support. Building a reliable support network of friends, family, or mentors who understand your plight provides a necessary buffer against manipulation. They can help validate your feelings, offer an outside perspective, and reinforce your sense of self-worth. Engaging in open conversations allows you to externalize your experiences and encourages an environment where you feel safe to voice concerns and vulnerabilities. As we conclude this chapter, remember that reclaiming power from manipulators is not a solitary endeavor. Cultivating self-awareness, documenting your experiences, setting boundaries, and seeking support creates a robust framework that fortifies your emotional well-being. The knowledge of manipulation tactics and the actionable steps to counter them emboldens you to navigate relationships with clarity and confidence. In the upcoming chapter, we will delve into the mechanics of control escalation and explore the gripping cycle that traps many victims within manipulative dynamics. Understanding how these cycles operate is crucial for saving oneself from further entanglement. As you prepare to uncover these patterns, take a moment to reflect on your journey thus far. Remember to subscribe to Stealth Psychology to stay updated, like the video, and share your thoughts or suggestions for future content. Once you comprehend these tactics, you will be armed with the insight necessary to resist being controlled in the same way again. Your empowerment journey starts here, and it is time to reclaim your narrative. Chapter 3. Gaslighting Games, Breaking Free from Confusion. Imagine a scene in a cozy, familiar living room where laughter used to flow effortlessly. Sarah, a vibrant and outgoing person, sits across from her partner Thomas, who has jovially recounted their day's events. Yet, an undercurrent of discomfort stirs within Sarah. As they discuss a troubling episode from weeks prior, Thomas entirely refutes her recollection of events. "That never happened," he asserts, his tone dismissive, leaving Sarah reeling in confusion. In that instant of vulnerability, he gaslights her perception, compelling her to question her memory and sanity. This manipulation is not just a momentary slip, it is a deliberate tactic employed to gain emotional control over Sarah, driving her into a state of self-doubt that begins to affect her entire existence. The ultimate goal of the gaslighter is to create confusion, rendering the victim uncertain of their reality. Thomas is not merely denying facts, he is reshaping Sarah's understanding of her own experiences, fostering dependency on him for emotional validation. By continually dismissing her feelings and memories, he cultivates an environment where Sarah feels compelled to seek reassurance from him. The underlying manipulation is insidious. What should be a loving partnership transforms into a battleground of perception and control. Victims often remain entangled in this web of confusion, failing to recognize the full extent of their entrapment until it becomes too late. Initially, Sarah may dismiss her doubts as mere misunderstandings, convincing herself that she is overreacting or misremembering events. The emotional toll accumulates, and the gaslighter's tactics evolve. In seeking to eliminate her self-confidence, Thomas craftily undermines her trust in herself, gradually isolating her from friends and family who might validate her experiences. This subtle yet effective erosion of autonomy can lead to despair, leaving victims trapped within a manipulated reality that distorts their understanding of normalcy. In times of emotional duress, many individuals like Sarah are susceptible to accepting the gaslighter's narrative. The pervasive doubt sowed within her psyche has ramifications that ripple outward, affecting her decision-making abilities and sense of agency. This manipulation fosters a dangerous milieu where the victim begins to second-guess not only their memories but also their worth. Gaslighting can lead to significant emotional distress, creating a cycle in which victims feel compelled to appease their abuser for fear of further emotional retribution. Research in psychology sheds light on the effectiveness of gaslighting as a control tactic. Victims often report an unsettling sense of disconnection from their thoughts and feelings, a state known as cognitive dissonance. This phenomenon emphasizes the difficulty in reconciling the gaslighter's narrative with one's own lived experience, causing a profound internal struggle. Consequently, those who are gaslighted may withdraw from reality, adhering to the tailor-made narrative of the manipulator, further entrenching themselves in their confusion. Understanding the mechanics of gaslighting is crucial in unveiling this hidden truth that so many experience but seldom recognize. Confronting the psychological entrapment requires a keen awareness of manipulation tactics and an empowered stance toward reclaiming one's reality. As we advance into the next section, the focus will shift to identifying the signs of gaslighting and providing practical counter-strategies. By illuminating these dark corners of manipulation, we can begin the journey of breaking free from confusion and restoring clarity to our lives. Recognizing the patterns of gaslighting is essential for those who seek liberation from the grips of emotional control that stifles their very essence. The effects of gaslighting infiltrate numerous dimensions of a victim's life, deeply impacting emotions, decision-making capabilities, relationships, and self-esteem. Victims frequently experience emotional turmoil, oscillating between anger, confusion, and despair. The volatile environment created by a gaslighter forces individuals to grapple with contradictory narratives, leaving them emotionally drained and questioning their perceptions. This emotional disarray can lead to an inability to make sound decisions. Victims often find themselves second-guessing their choices, frantically seeking validation from a source that only reinforces the confusion. Take the example of Rachel, a bright and independent woman whose relationship with her partner, David, devolved into an atmosphere of manipulation. At first, Rachel was confident and assertive in her beliefs. However, as David began to dismiss her views, claiming they were illogical or misguided, the ground beneath her feet started to shift. Rachel experienced increasing anxiety, caught in a constant battle to discern reality from the twisted version David presented. The consequences were profound. Her work performance waned as she became engulfed in self-doubt, and her relationships with friends suffered as she withdrew from social gatherings, fearing judgment or confrontation. Psychological research indicates that gaslighting can lead to an internalization of the manipulator's narrative, often resulting in diminished self-esteem. Victims may start to believe they are inferior, incapable, or even crazy, adopting this identity over time. This phenomenon is driven home by studies illustrating how manipulation diminishes the victim's sense of agency, leading them to defer to the gaslighter for emotional support and validation. Gaslighting exploits human vulnerability, the intrinsic need for connection and acceptance, compounded by the fear of loneliness. Often, people fall for these tactics because they desire to preserve the relationship, hoping that if they adjust their behavior, everything will return to normal. Consider the case of Mark, who faced intense psychological pressure from his supervisor at work. Over time, the supervisor began to rewrite Mark's contributions, claiming ideas were not his own and attributing success to others. At first, Mark questioned his memories, thinking that perhaps he misremembered events. As the gaslighting persisted, his enthusiasm for his job dwindled, replaced by frustration and inadequacy. Over time, Mark's decision-making faltered, as he hesitated to voice his opinions or take initiative, fearing his ideas would be dismissed once more. This agonizing cycle of self-doubt inexorably altered his relationship with work, stripping away joy and fulfillment. Understanding the psychological machinations of gaslighting reinforces the urgency of awareness in our interactions. Leaving individuals unaware of these detrimental tactics can lead to prolonged suffering and disempowerment. As readers gain insight into the complex emotional dynamics underpinning gaslighting, it becomes imperative to identify the patterns that could signify harmful relationships. As we move into the next section, we will analyze the hidden warning signs of gaslighting that often escape detection, enabling readers to equip themselves with the tools necessary to navigate potentially toxic environments. The recognition of these signs is paramount for breaking the cycle of manipulation, one that can ensnare even the strongest among us. By illuminating these crucial indicators, we can foster a greater understanding of emotional health and resilience, empowering individuals to assert their reality in the face of psychological adversity. Remember, knowledge is not just power. It is the key to reclaiming your narrative and safeguarding your emotional well-being. Manipulators who engage in gaslighting have a remarkable ability to identify their targets, often focusing on individuals who exhibit traits of vulnerability or a heightened need for approval. They possess a keen intuition for recognizing those who may struggle with self-doubt or possess an excessive desire for validation. These targets may often be empathetic, seeking to please others, which makes them particularly susceptible to the nuanced tactics of gaslighting. Consider the case of Linda, a compassionate and hardworking team member who consistently goes above and beyond to aid her colleagues. Linda's deep-seated desire for harmony in her work environment makes her an inviting target for Emma, her charming but manipulative peer. Initially, Emma presents herself as a friend, showering Linda with compliments and support. However, once she identifies Linda's emotional investment in their relationship, Emma begins to subtly warp Linda's reality. She inserts doubt into Linda's mind regarding her contributions, claiming, "You didn't really work on that. I remember doing it all myself." This interaction, framed as casual commentary, lodges deeply in Linda's psyche, initiating a dangerous cycle of self-doubt. The psychological shifts that occur during these interactions can be subtle yet profound. In Linda's case, she slowly begins to question her perceptions of past events, unsure of what is factual and what has been distorted by Emma's narrative. Each encounter further chisels away at Linda's confidence, and the emotional weight of second-guessing becomes increasingly burdensome. This diminishing of self-trust is a hallmark of gaslighting, wherein the victim feels compelled to seek validation from the very person manipulating them. Linda, once assured of her capabilities, now constantly looks to Emma for affirmation, eroding her confidence day by day. Similarly, the scenario of Thomas and his partner Sarah unfolds in a different manner but follows a similar trajectory. Sarah's nurturing spirit often leads her to prioritize her partner's feelings over her own. Thomas recognizes her tendency to placate and exploit her emotional sensitivity. By claiming, "You're just being overly sensitive, everyone else agrees with me," Thomas invokes a form of emotional coercion that further entrenches Sarah in a minefield of confusion. This dynamic reinforces Thomas's control as Sarah begins to retract her opinions and diminish her own feelings before even attempting to express them. Through their tactics, gaslighters not only target the emotionally vulnerable, but also craftily escalate their maneuvers as relationships deepen. The victim becomes gradually conditioned to accept the gaslighter's version of reality, blurring the lines of their own emotional landscape. The more entrenched the victim becomes in this distorted narrative, the harder it is to break free. Oblivion to the manipulation leads to isolation, where the victim feels they cannot trust their own judgment or seek help from friends. Understanding the methodologies employed by gaslighters is a critical component of self-defense against such emotional manipulation. The knowledge of how gaslighters identify their targets, the tactics they employ, and the psychological shifts that occur provide essential insights for anyone navigating the complexities of interpersonal relationships. Recognizing these patterns enables individuals to reclaim their sense of self empowering them to question reality and seek support. As we move into the next segment of this chapter, we will explore the escalation of control, illuminating how victims can become trapped in cycles of manipulation. By understanding these patterns of escalation, we prepare ourselves to resist and ultimately rise above the dark tactics employed by gaslighters. Recognizing the progression allows for proactive engagement in reclaiming one's narrative and asserting control over emotional well-being. Breaking free from the clutches of gaslighting demands a proactive approach rooted in self-awareness and assertiveness. A powerful counter-strategy is to cultivate an unwavering trust in your instincts, complemented by a rigorous commitment to regaining clarity in your life. The gaslighter thrives in the fog of doubt and uncertainty, using it as a veil to manipulate perceptions and distort reality. Therefore, your first step toward liberation involves recognizing the emotional turmoil and confusion created by these interactions. Acknowledge your feelings when they arise, whether it's frustration, anger, or a persistent sense of unease. These responses are not simply emotional reactions. They are your inner self attempting to signal that something is fundamentally amiss. Maintaining a journal can serve as a transformative tool in this process. Document your thoughts, feelings, and the instances of manipulation you experience. By writing down your memories of interactions, you create a tangible reference point, a way to affirm your reality amid a changing landscape of perception. As each entry accumulates, patterns may emerge, providing visual proof of distortion and manipulation. This written record can help you challenge the gaslighter's narrative, reinforcing your self-trust in moments of self-doubt. Alongside journaling, it is crucial to establish firm, clear boundaries in your relationships. When you find yourself confronted with dismissive or devaluing comments, respond assertively. For instance, saying, "I don't appreciate when you question my experiences. My feelings are valid," reinstates your right to your own emotions and experiences. By asserting yourself, you begin to shift the power dynamics, putting the gaslighter on notice that their behaviors will no longer be tolerated. Firm boundaries empower you, creating a protective barrier against emotional encroachment. Equally important is reconnecting with your support network. Surround yourself with people who uplift and validate you, ensuring you have allies who can provide an external perspective. Friends and family provide not only emotional support, but also critical insight, helping you recognize when you are being manipulated. Engaging in discussions about your experiences can bring clarity to clouded thoughts and restore a sense of agency. Their affirmations can counteract the isolating effects of gaslighting and serve as a strong reminder of your worth. As we conclude this chapter, remember that regaining clarity is vital for overcoming the chaos instigated by gaslighting. Trusting your instincts and establishing strong boundaries will fortify your emotional resilience. The understanding of these tactics arms you with the knowledge needed to resist them, bolstering your capacity to navigate relationships with confidence. In the next chapter, we will delve into the escalation of control tactics employed by gaslighters and how victims often become trapped in these cyclical patterns. Understanding the nature of this escalation equips you to identify when you are at risk of becoming ensnared, allowing for proactive measures to protect your emotional well-being. Before moving forward, consider subscribing to Stealth Psychology, liking the video, or sharing your thoughts for further development of this essential dialogue. With a deeper comprehension of these tactics and their implications, you will be empowered to reclaim your narrative and disallow manipulation from ever controlling you again. Your journey toward emotional autonomy begins here, fortified by knowledge and introspection, and you are more than capable of steering your path toward freedom. Chapter 4: Emotional Hooks. Why Narcissists Reel You In. Imagine a lively social event where everyone is mingling, laughter fills the air, and the atmosphere is charged with energy. In the corner, a charismatic individual captivates an audience with tales of their impressive accomplishments. Their charm is magnetic, drawing people closer, eager to bask in the glow of their attention. This individual, however, is a master manipulator, adept at identifying emotional vulnerabilities and exploiting them for personal gain. Their primary goal is not merely to entertain, but to create an emotional dependency that leaves others craving their approval and validation. Narcissists often utilize emotional hooks to ensnare their targets. They project an image of success and confidence that lures potential victims into their web of charm. When someone displays a strong need for connection, validation, or admiration, they become particularly susceptible. The narcissist employs flattery, focusing on the target's strengths or insecurities to strategically establish a bond. In doing so, they craft illusions of intimacy that can be intoxicating, making victims believe they have found a unique connection with someone truly special. Consider the case of Alex, a recent college graduate who encountered a business mentor, Ray, during networking events. Ray seemed genuinely interested in Alex's aspirations, providing invaluable advice and showering him with praise. Initially, Alex felt validated and energized by this mentorship, believing he had struck gold in his career. Unbeknownst to him, Ray had ulterior motives. He thrived on Alex's adoration while subtly guiding him toward decisions that would ultimately serve Ray's interests. Alex's eagerness to make a favorable impression blinded him to the accumulating signs of manipulation. Slowly, he began to prioritize Ray's needs over his own, losing sight of his professional goals and personal values. As the relationship deepened, emotional hooks tightened their grip on Alex. Ray's tactical use of praise and attention led Alex to become increasingly reliant on his mentor's validation. The emotional highs and lows intensified, with Ray alternating between admiration and subtle put-downs, creating a cycle of confusion. This emotional roller coaster left Alex questioning his self-worth, undermining his confidence as he grew accustomed to seeking Ray's approval. In a cruel twist of fate, what began as a promising mentorship devolved into a precarious dependency that constricted Alex's autonomy. Victims often fail to recognize the extent of their entrapment until it becomes too late. The charm and attention that initially illuminated their lives fade into emotional chaos, where their sense of self becomes entangled with the manipulator's narrative. Their identity may shift to align with the expectations instilled by the narcissist, making it increasingly challenging to disentangle themselves from the relationship. This process culminates in a distorted reality where the victim's worth hinges on the manipulator's actions, an emotional trap that proves difficult to escape. The realization of emotional hooks, how they function and why they ensnare, is crucial for those striving to maintain emotional authenticity. Acknowledging the tactics and recognizing the signs of manipulation is the first step toward regaining agency. Understanding the underlying dynamics enables victims to see through the manipulator's charm and reclaim their narrative, paving the way for healthier, more genuine relationships. As we continue to explore this chapter, we will delve deeper into the psychological mechanisms behind emotional hooks and examine strategies to recognize and dismantle the emotional dependencies often formed in these manipulative dynamics. Understanding these patterns equips individuals with the tools necessary to safeguard against emotional exploitation and cultivate a stronger sense of self. The impact of emotional hooks employed by narcissists can be profoundly influencing emotions, decision-making, relationships, and self-esteem. Victims often find themselves caught in an emotional whirlwind, shifting between euphoric highs of admiration and crushing lows of rejection or disappointment. The initial flattery acts as a potent drug, creating a strong emotional dependency that can cloud judgment and skew perceptions of reality. As this dependency deepens, many individuals become increasingly susceptible to the manipulative tactics of the narcissist, neglecting their own needs and values in the process. For example, consider Lisa, who enters a romantic relationship with Tom, a charismatic individual who appears to shower her with affection and adoration. Initially swept off her feet by his attention and charm, Lisa begins to believe she has found her soulmate. However, as time progresses, Tom's admiration is frequently punctuated by criticism, another emotional hook in his manipulative repertoire. He alternates between affection and belittling comments, creating a cycle that leaves Lisa questioning her worth. This fluctuation in emotional security leads her to constantly seek his approval, causing her to undermine her self-esteem and panic at the thought of losing his affection. Research underscores that emotional hooks create a sense of cognitive dissonance, wherein the individual struggles to reconcile the positive aspects of the relationship with the negative behaviors displayed by the manipulator. Psychologists have shown that people are naturally inclined to seek consistency in their beliefs and behaviors, which often leads victims to rationalize the manipulator's actions or dismiss their own feelings of discomfort. The emotional roller coaster perpetuated by the narcissist can lead victims to deny their better judgment, choosing to cling to the moments of validation that fuel their emotional cravings. Moreover, the decision-making processes of those ensnared in these relationships can become profoundly impaired. Victims may find themselves prioritizing the narcissist's needs and desires over their own, leading to poor choices that derail personal goals and aspirations. In Lisa's case, she may sacrifice her friendships, hobbies, or even career opportunities in an attempt to please Tom. This gradual erosion of self can perpetuate a cycle of emotional dependency that further entraps victims, distancing them from their support networks and diminishing their sense of autonomy. Understanding why individuals fall for emotional hooks sheds light on the psychological vulnerabilities that make them susceptible to manipulation. Many victims possess empathy, a trait that narcissists exploit by portraying themselves as victims or deserving of sympathy. The emotional narrative crafted by the narcissist effectively captures the victim's attention, creating a false sense of responsibility for their well-being. As we approach the conclusion of this section, it becomes evident that recognizing the effects of emotional hooks is imperative for safeguarding oneself against manipulation. The emotional turmoil, poor decision-making, and erosion of self-esteem must be acknowledged and addressed to break free from these traps. In the following section, we will delve into the hidden warning signs of emotional hooks and manipulation that often go unnoticed. Identifying these subtle cues is crucial for individuals seeking to reclaim their sense of self and protect their emotional health. By becoming aware of these red flags, you will be better equipped to navigate relationships, ensuring that genuine connections can flourish without the shadow of manipulation looming over them. Armed with this knowledge, you can take proactive steps toward cultivating healthier, more authentic emotional bonds that honor your individuality and self-worth. Narcissists are highly skilled at identifying their targets, often honing in on individuals who display vulnerabilities such as low self-esteem, a strong desire for approval, or a deep need for connection and validation. These traits create ripe opportunities for emotional manipulation, allowing the narcissist to exploit the target's weaknesses. They tend to observe their environment meticulously, pinpointing those who are sensitive, empathetic, or in a transitional phase of life, such as a new job, a recent breakup, or a significant life change. Take the case of Sam, a newcomer at a large company who is eager to make friends and build connections. Sarah, a seasoned employee with a charming facade, spots Sam's eagerness and quickly befriends him. Initially, her attention feels flattering. She praises his contributions and makes him feel valued. However, as she gains Sam's trust, she subtly begins to manipulate him by favoring her ideas over his during team discussions. The emotional hook is established as Sam feels compelled to seek her approval, fearing rejection or criticism. As their relationship grows, the dynamics subtly shift. Sarah's compliments now come with implied criticisms, masked as helpful tips. For instance, when Sam presents an idea, Sarah might say, "That's interesting, but it might be better if you approached it from a different angle," causing him to question the validity of his own thoughts. This constant reframing of his reality creates an internal conflict for Sam, where he starts to doubt his abilities. These psychological shifts can be observed in how Sam's affection for Sarah begins to coalesce with confusion and self-doubt, leading him into a cycle of dependency. The manipulation progresses as Sarah continues to reinforce her position while keeping Sam emotionally entangled. She may utilize tactics such as future faking, where she discusses grand plans that include him, creating an illusion of a shared future that elicits his investment in their relationship. This strategy feeds into Sam's desire for partnership and validation. The psychological shifts occurring here are not merely emotional, they're cognitive as well. Sam is increasingly likely to rationalize Sarah's manipulative behaviors, believing that if he just aligns more closely with her suggestions, he will be rewarded with affirmation and support, further entrenching himself in her web of influence. Narcissists often master this type of emotional gameplay by employing charm and charisma as tools for manipulation. Victims, like Sam, often find themselves second-guessing their intuitions and feelings, experiencing cognitive dissonance as they struggle to align their lived experiences with the distorted perceptions imposed on them by the narcissist. Understanding these dynamics is critical for self-defense because it allows victims to recognize when they are being manipulated. As this section concludes, it is crucial to acknowledge that recognizing the emotional hooks used by narcissists is the first step toward resistance. Awareness of their target identification methods lays the groundwork for empowering victims to reclaim their narratives and bolster their emotional resilience. In the next part, we will explore the escalation of control that narcissists frequently employ, illustrating how victims can become entrapped in recurring cycles of manipulation. Understanding these escalatory tactics is essential for breaking free from the grips of manipulation and safeguarding one's emotional well-being. With this knowledge in hand, you will be equipped to defend yourself against emotional exploitation and to establish healthier relationships rooted in mutual respect and authenticity. Breaking free from the emotional hooks used by narcissists requires a multifaceted approach that emphasizes self-awareness and assertiveness. A critical counter-strategy is to cultivate unwavering trust in your instincts and recognize that these manipulative tactics thrive in an atmosphere of uncertainty and confusion. The realization of this dynamic is crucial as it empowers individuals to regain clarity and ultimately liberate themselves from manipulative ties. The first step toward liberation is to restore your emotional clarity by engaging in self-reflection. When confronted with moments of doubt or unease in a relationship, pause and assess how you feel. Are you experiencing confusion, anxiety, or a sense of inadequacy? These feelings are significant indicators that manipulation may be at play. To solidify this self-awareness, maintaining a journal can be immensely beneficial. Document your daily interactions, focusing on your feelings and reactions. Patterns often emerge in how a narcissist's behavior affects your emotional state. By objectively reviewing these entries, you can discern the manipulation tactics employed against you, helping you develop a clearer understanding of your reality. Establishing personal boundaries is equally essential. Narcissists often push limits to create dependency and maintain control. It is crucial to communicate your boundaries explicitly and firmly. When a manipulative individual crosses these lines, be prepared to assertively reiterate your limits. For example, if a friend dismisses your opinions during discussions, you can say, "I value our friendship, but I need my thoughts to be respected in our conversations." This not only reinforces your self-worth, but also signals to the narcissist that their tactics will not dictate your reality. As you practice setting boundaries, you will cultivate a stronger sense of self and reduce dependence on their validation. Equally important is the necessity of cultivating a supportive network outside the manipulative relationship. Surround yourself with individuals who genuinely appreciate you for who you are, providing a counterbalance to the poison of narcissistic influence. Engage in open conversations about your experiences and feelings with trusted friends or family members. Their perspectives offer validation that reinforces your understanding of healthy relationships and can help pinpoint when manipulation is occurring. While embarking on this journey to reclaim your autonomy, remember that emotional clarity and self-belief will enhance your resilience against narcissistic manipulation. Trusting your instincts will guide you in developing healthy boundaries while simultaneously strengthening your self-esteem. Recognizing the emotional hooks and the dynamics at play will arm you with the insight necessary to mitigate their effect on your life. As we transition to the next chapter, we will delve into the escalation of control tactics commonly used by narcissists and how manageable interactions can spiral into cycles of manipulation. Understanding the patterns of control is essential for equipping yourself with the tools necessary to break free from these potentially harmful dynamics. With this knowledge, you will gain confidence in your ability to navigate relationships, ensuring that they are defined by respect and authenticity. Before we proceed, consider subscribing to Stealth Psychology to keep abreast of this transformative journey. Your feedback is invaluable, so please like this video and share your thoughts and suggestions for content that could further enhance our discussions. The knowledge you acquire in this journey will fortify your ability to resist emotional manipulation, allowing you to thrive in relationships defined by mutual respect and understanding. Once you grasp these tactics, you will reclaim your narrative and no longer be controlled by emotional hooks. Your path to empowerment starts now. Chapter 5. Silent Battles, Recognizing Covert Narcissism. Imagine a close-knit group of friends gathered for a celebration. Among them is Clara, who always seems supportive and understanding, offering kind words and validating the feelings of others. Yet beneath her charming facade lies a more insidious reality. A covert narcissist maneuvering through emotional landscapes to maintain control. Clara's manipulations are subtle, yet effective. She thrives on being seen as the caring friend, while deftly orchestrating scenarios that elevate her status within the group. Her ultimate goal is emotional control, ensuring that those around her remain dependent on her for affirmation and support. The troubling aspect of such covert tactics is that victims often fail to recognize the full extent of their entrapment until it becomes deeply ingrained in their lives. Covert narcissism operates in the shadows, starkly different from overt narcissism, which is characterized by blatant self-importance and attention-seeking behavior. In the case of Clara, she cloaks her self-serving intentions in a guise of concern, making it difficult for her friends to realize they are being manipulated. Whenever one of her friends shares personal achievements, Clara skillfully redirects the conversation to her own experiences, subtly minimizing their accomplishments. When lamenting about a bad day, Clara often responds with, "I know how you feel, but you should consider what I went through last week," positioning herself as the focal point of empathy. Such tactics create a complex web of control that keeps her friends emotionally linked to her while simultaneously undermining their self-esteem. Victims of covert narcissism like Clara's friends may operate under the misconception that they have a supportive ally. However, as they continuously seek to please Clara and earn her validation, they find themselves ensnared in a cycle of self-doubt and confusion. Over time, the friends may begin to question their worth, attributing their feelings of inadequacy to their perceived failures in meeting Clara's unspoken expectations. This dynamic breeds internal conflict, as the smeared boundaries cause the victims to reinterpret healthy behaviors through the lens of Clara's manipulations. They may dismiss their own achievements, convinced that they could have done better if Clara had not overshadowed their moment. This erosion of self-worth often leads to social isolation. As these friends become increasingly reliant on Clara's approval, they withdraw from other friendships, believing they cannot find the same level of validation elsewhere. Research indicates that covert narcissistic behaviors can have a profound effect on emotional well-being, creating an environment ripe for manipulation that distorts reality. Victims may experience anxiety, confusion, and hesitance in expressing their thoughts or feelings, perpetuating the silent battle against an unseen adversary. Often, they rationalize Clara's dismissive behavior, convincing themselves that she must be going through something challenging, thereby ignoring the toll it is taking on their self-esteem. Understanding the dynamics of covert narcissism reveals the hidden truths about psychological manipulation that remain obscured from view. Recognizing these traits and behaviors is crucial for individuals striving to navigate their relationships with clarity. The gradual erosion of self-worth perpetuated by covert narcissism can be devastating if left unchecked. Awareness of these tactics and the psychological impacts they inflict can empower victims to reclaim their narrative, allowing them to step back from their entrapments. As we dive deeper into this chapter, we will explore strategies for recognizing covert narcissism in your life and the steps necessary to combat its influence. Identifying the signs and understanding their implications are vital for protecting oneself from emotional exploitation and fostering healthier relationships characterized by mutual respect and support. The effects of covert narcissism are insidious, subtly infiltrating emotions, decision-making processes, relationships, and self-esteem. Those ensnared in the web of a covert narcissist often experience emotional turmoil that manifests in anxiety, confusion, and self-doubt. These individuals may find themselves in a constant state of cognitive dissonance, struggling to align their experiences with the narrative presented by the covert narcissist. Over time, this emotional instability skews their perception of reality, eroding their confidence and making them more susceptible to further manipulation. Consider the case of Melanie, a young professional working alongside Clara. Initially, Melanie was excited to collaborate with Clara, who seemed interested in supporting her career. Clara, however, skillfully downplayed Melanie's achievements while projecting an image of unrivaled knowledge and competence. For instance, during a presentation, Clara would often offer unsolicited critiques disguised as helpful advice, leaving Melanie feeling undermined. The more Melanie accepted Clara's comments without question, the more her self-esteem diminished. She began to second-guess her abilities, consistently seeking Clara's approval rather than trusting her instincts. This vicious cycle highlights how covert narcissism impacts decision-making. Melanie started to prioritize Clara's opinions over her own, leading to paralysis in her creative process. Research in psychology indicates that emotional dependency on a covert narcissist can alter an individual's decision-making calculations. Specifically, studies suggest that victims rationalize their experiences with the manipulator, reinforcing a detrimental feedback loop based on fear and uncertainty, which can inhibit personal growth. As Melanie continued to rely on Clara for validation, she increasingly found herself avoiding opportunities for independent professional development, fearing criticism or rejection from Clara. The relational dynamics shift dramatically as well. Covert narcissists often foster environments of emotional chaos, where their support masquerades as control. Melanie's friendships began to suffer since she withdrew from social interactions, fearing that her achievements might provoke petty rivalries or jealousy in Clara. This isolation from peers and loved ones only magnified Melanie's reliance on Clara, creating a reinforcing loop that intensified the emotional toll. Understanding why people fall for the tactics of covert narcissists is crucial for self-defense. Many victims possess a strong desire for acceptance and validation, traits that narcissists exploit to ingratiate themselves into their lives. The flattering facade of the covert narcissist makes it easy for those seeking affirmation to overlook warning signs. Individuals like Melanie may convince themselves that they are lucky to have someone as experienced and supportive as Clara, focusing on the fleeting moments of praise while dismissing troubling behaviors as mere misunderstandings. As the emotional grip of covert narcissism intensifies, victims may find their self-esteem eroded to the point of internalizing the manipulator's dismissive sentiments. Eventually, the sense of self that once defined Melanie dissolves into a fragmented identity reliant on the narcissist's whims. The urgency to recognize and address these detrimental patterns cannot be overstated, as patients often remain unaware of the erosion of their sense of self until it becomes deeply entrenched. In the next portion of this chapter, we will illuminate the hidden warning signs of covert narcissism, those subtle cues that easily elude recognition. By identifying and understanding these signs, individuals can begin to shed the weight of manipulation and reclaim their autonomy. Gaining awareness of covert narcissistic behaviors empowers individuals to navigate their relationships with clarity and fosters healthier interactions grounded in respect and authenticity. This knowledge is vital for escaping the insidious grip of covert narcissism, allowing for growth and recovery on the path toward emotional health and independence. Covert narcissists possess a remarkable ability to identify their targets, often selecting individuals who exhibit emotional vulnerabilities or strong desires for validation and approval. They are attuned to cues that signal a person's empathetic nature or social hesitancy, making them prime candidates for manipulation. Victims like Melanie often find themselves ensnared in these dynamics without acknowledging the depth of their entrapment. They may think they are forging supportive relationships based on shared interests, while in reality, they are becoming pawns in a game driven by the covert narcissist's need for control and admiration. For instance, in an office setting, a covert narcissist may target a newer employee who is eager to build rapport and establish their reputation. This individual, Sarah, has just joined the team, enthusiastic about contributing and forming connections. Her colleague, Lisa, theaters what appears to be a friendly demeanor, presenting herself as a mentor. Initially, Lisa offers guidance and flattery, making Sarah feel appreciated and admired. However, as time passes, Lisa's compliments morph into veiled criticisms, such as, "You did that well, but you could learn a lot more from someone with experience like me." This behavior is not purely constructive. It is carefully calculated to create an emotional dependence on Lisa's approval. As the relationship deepens, Sarah's self-esteem begins to erode. Lisa's subtle manipulation instills self-doubt, leading Sarah to second-guess her decisions and suppress her confidence. Lisa, aware of Sarah's vulnerability, continues to reinforce her position as the knowledgeable authority. Whenever Sarah accomplishes something noteworthy, Lisa might overshadow it by sharing an exaggerated story of her own success, redirecting attention back to herself. This shift puts Sarah in a position where she feels her contributions are invalidated and her feelings overlooked, further entrenching her reliance on Lisa for affirmation. Psychological shifts occur gradually but are profound in their impact. Sarah experiences cognitive dissonance, struggling to reconcile her initial admiration for Lisa with the emerging realization that their relationship is toxic. This discomfort often leads her to blame herself, believing she must simply try harder to earn Lisa's respect. As a result, Sarah may withdraw from other friendships and activities, isolating herself in a quest for validation from a singular source, which reinforces the dynamic of dependence. Understanding how covert narcissists identify and exploit these emotional vulnerabilities is vital for navigating relationships with clarity. They often craft their approach based on the target's personal history, using insights about their emotional needs as tools for manipulation. The relational imbalance can leave victims questioning their worth, independent of the covert narcissist's influence. Recognizing the patterns of manipulators can illuminate critical insights that empower individuals to reclaim their autonomy. As Sarah continues to seek validation from Lisa, her identity becomes inextricably linked to the approval she receives, creating psychological barriers that make it more difficult to break free from this manipulation. Awareness of these dynamics is crucial. It is the first step toward resistance and self-empowerment. As we transition to the next part of this chapter, we will explore the escalation of control tactics employed by covert narcissists, examining how seemingly innocuous behaviors can spiral into cycles of manipulation that entrap victims. Understanding these escalatory patterns will equip readers with essential knowledge to safeguard their emotional well-being, enabling them to navigate their lives with confidence and clarity. The path to liberation begins with awareness, allowing for a more authentic and empowered existence beyond the reach of manipulation. Breaking free from the dark psychological tactics employed by covert narcissists necessitates a robust strategy centered on self-trust and clarity. A deep practical counter-strategy involves developing a clear awareness of your emotions and consistently validating your own feelings. The first step in this process is to establish a strong foundation of self-awareness. When interacting with someone who exhibits covert narcissistic traits, pay close attention to how those interactions make you feel. Does their behavior leave you feeling diminished or unsure of yourself? Recognizing these emotional responses is a critical component in reclaiming your sense of reality. Engaging in regular self-reflection can reinforce this self-awareness. Consider setting aside time each day to evaluate your feelings and experiences related to your interactions. Journaling provides a powerful outlet for articulating your thoughts. Writing down specific instances where you felt manipulated or undermined not only validates your feelings, but also creates a tangible record to reference when doubts arise. As you review these entries, you may begin to notice patterns in the manipulator's behavior, allowing you to anticipate and counter their tactics more effectively. Another significant part of this counter strategy is learning to assert your boundaries firmly. When you encounter manipulative behavior, it is essential to communicate your needs clearly and assertively. For example, suppose a covert narcissist like Clara continues to redirect conversations toward herself or undermine your accomplishments. In that case, confidently re-establish the focus on your experiences by stating, "I appreciate your input, but I'd like to share my achievements without comparison." Asserting your boundaries not only reinforces your self-worth, but also signals to the manipulator that their tactics will no longer dictate your interactions. Additionally, fostering a strong support network can help you maintain clarity. Surrounding yourself with people who genuinely value you will strengthen your perception of reality and provide an emotional refuge where your feelings are validated. Engaging with friends or family creates a space where you can openly discuss your experiences, allowing you to gain perspective and affirm your sense of self outside the manipulative dynamic. As you dismantle the emotional hooks holding you captive, it is vital to trust your instincts. Covert narcissists thrive in environments filled with uncertainty, and regaining clarity will empower you to recognize manipulation as it unfolds. Listen closely to your inner voice. If something feels off, it likely is. Each decision to prioritize your needs over someone else's expectations is a powerful step toward liberation. As we draw this chapter to a close, remember that understanding the tactics used by covert narcissists is a crucial part of your journey toward resistance. By fostering self-awareness, asserting boundaries, and trusting your instincts, you can create an environment where manipulation has no power. In the next chapter, we will delve into the escalation of control often employed by covert narcissists, examining how these tactics can develop into increasingly toxic cycles. Recognizing these patterns is essential for breaking free from manipulation's grasp. Together, we will explore the pathways to emotional freedom and ensure that you possess the knowledge and tools to maintain your well-being. As you continue this empowering journey, consider subscribing to Stealth Psychology for further insights, liking the video, and sharing your thoughts or suggestions for future discussions. With this understanding, you can shield yourself from being controlled in the same way again, embracing a life of authenticity, confidence, and fulfillment. Your path to empowerment begins with awareness, and you are already taking the crucial steps toward reclaiming your narrative. Chapter 6: Guarding Your Space. The Power of Boundaries. Picture a vibrant gathering where laughter and camaraderie fill the air. Among the attendees is David, an affable person who has always been the life of the party, effortlessly drawing people in with his charm. Yet, as the night unfolds, it becomes increasingly evident that beneath the surface warmth lies a manipulative character, adept at overstepping boundaries to gain control. David skillfully sidesteps personal space and disregards others' comfort levels, unknowingly wielding his charm as a tool for emotional control. His ultimate goal is to ensure compliance from those around him while maintaining an illusion of being a supportive friend or confidant. The insidious nature of his tactics often leaves victims feeling awkward or pressured, leading them to overlook the subtlety of the manipulation until they feel trapped in unmanageable dynamics. As the party progresses, David might share private information about someone to gain favor or influence their behavior, presenting it as a harmless tactic in a supposed effort to connect more deeply. While his intentions may seem innocuous on the surface, the underlying message is clear. He desires to establish dominance over social dynamics, ensuring others know that he holds power over information and interpersonal connections. Victims often fall prey to such manipulations, failing to recognize the erosion of their autonomy until critical lines have been crossed. This scenario illustrates a pervasive reality within social interactions. When boundaries are not established and maintained, emotional manipulation can thrive. Individuals often struggle to enforce personal boundaries, feeling uncomfortable asserting their needs or confronting a friend they value. The fear of causing conflict or fostering resentment can compel them to tolerate unwelcome behavior, creating an internal conflict that leads to emotional distress. Consider Jane, who frequently finds herself feeling overwhelmed by her friendship with Amy, who often impulsively invites herself into Jane's home without notice. Jane loves her friend but feels her personal space and time eroding. She becomes caught in a cycle of accommodating Amy's demands, believing that speaking up would upset the delicate balance of their friendship. This avoidance results in Jane feeling flustered, anxious, and even resentful, failing to recognize that allowing her boundaries to be trodden upon is ultimately damaging her emotional well-being. The irony is that while she seeks to be a good friend, she is sacrificing her sense of self by allowing Amy's intrusive behavior to prevail. The profound impact of boundary violations on emotions and self-esteem cannot be understated. As individuals surrender their autonomy to please others or avoid discomfort, they may find their identities becoming intertwined with the manipulator's whims, leading to a loss of agency that can be difficult to reclaim. Over time, their self-esteem is chipped away at, creating a sense of inadequacy and dependency that only reinforces the manipulator's power. Understanding the significance of establishing boundaries is critical for safeguarding one's emotional space. Victims must recognize that setting boundaries is not an act of aggression, but a fundamental expression of self-respect and a necessary component for healthy relationships. Knowing when to assert your limits and communicate your needs is essential. As we progress into the next part of this chapter, we will explore practical strategies for identifying and setting effective boundaries that guard your emotional space. Empowering yourself to establish these limits can cultivate healthier dynamics and ensure that your relationships thrive free from manipulation. By learning the language of boundaries, you will ultimately reclaim your autonomy and enjoy more fulfilling connections. The impact of boundary violations on emotional health is profound, affecting emotions, decision-making, relationships, and self-esteem in ways that often go unnoticed until the damage is significant. When personal boundaries are disregarded, victims frequently experience emotional turmoil, which can manifest as anxiety, frustration, and feelings of inadequacy. These emotions arise from the disconnect between an individual's needs and the manipulative behavior of others, creating a perpetual state of discomfort. Take the case of Rachel, a young professional who finds herself repeatedly stressed due to her boss's demands. Initially, she was excited about her new role, eager to impress and eager to help her supervisor. However, as her boss began to encroach on her personal time, often calling her after hours with requests that could have waited, Rachel experienced growing anxiety. The pressure to meet these expectations gradually eroded her confidence, leaving her feeling overwhelmed and increasingly trapped in a cycle of compliance. Each time she allowed the boundaries of her personal time to be violated, Rachel's self-worth diminished, resulting in feelings of inadequacy and self-doubt about her capabilities. Research indicates that people often fall prey to boundary violations due to a combination of empathy and the desire to please others. Individuals with strong empathic tendencies like Rachel may overextend themselves in an effort to maintain harmony, often neglecting their own needs. Psychological studies demonstrate that this pattern can lead to a phenomenon known as people-pleasing, where the constant effort to satisfy others' demands leads to anxiety and burnout. This behavior not only compromises emotional well-being, but also impacts decision-making abilities, as individuals feel increasingly pressured to prioritize others over themselves. The effects on relationships can be severe as well. When boundaries are continually disregarded, victims may withdraw from friends and family to cope with their emotional distress. Rachel began to isolate herself, avoiding social interactions to focus on work, convinced that she needed to appease her boss. This social withdrawal prevented her from receiving support and validation from others, further entrenching her reliance on her boss for affirmation. Such dynamics create an environment imbued with emotional chaos, where the manipulator maintains control while the victim's ability to assert themselves weakens. In addition, the erosion of self-esteem resulting from boundary violations can lead to a warped self-perception. Victims may begin to internalize the negative messages communicated by manipulators, convincing themselves they are unworthy of respect or consideration. As Rachel continued to accept her boss's overreaching demands, she transformed her understanding of self-worth to hinge on her ability to comply, rather than her intrinsic value and capabilities as a professional. Understanding these detrimental effects is crucial for safeguarding one's emotional health. Recognizing the interplay between boundary violations and emotional well-being enables individuals to take proactive measures toward asserting their needs. Setting boundaries is not merely an act of defiance. It is a vital affirmation of self-respect. As we move forward, the next section will delve into the hidden warning signs of boundary violations and how they manifest in everyday life. By identifying these subtle cues, readers can learn to protect their emotional space and fortify their relationships against manipulation. Gaining awareness of these signs will empower individuals to reclaim their autonomy and nurture healthier, more respectful interactions, ultimately leading to a more balanced and fulfilling life. Manipulators skilled in exploiting boundaries are adept at identifying their targets through keen observation of emotional vulnerabilities. They often seek out individuals who display traits such as high empathy, a strong need for approval, or a reluctance to assert themselves. These characteristics create an ideal foundation for emotional exploitation, as the manipulator can exploit their victim's desire for connection or approval. For example, consider the case of Nolan, a compassionate social worker who thrives on helping others. His colleague Jennifer recognizes Nolan's empathetic nature and quickly positions herself as a friend and confidant. Initially, she appears to seek his guidance, frequently asking for assistance with her own projects. Over time, however, Jennifer starts to intrude upon Nolan's personal time, inviting herself to join him for work-related discussions outside of business hours. Nolan, eager to help and maintain camaraderie, acquiesces to these requests, not realizing he is inadvertently compromising his work-life balance. In this scenario, the manipulative tactics employed by Jennifer become increasingly apparent as the relationship develops. She leverages Nolan's kindness, gradually increasing the demands on his time and energy. The psychological shift for Nolan is profound. As Jennifer's requests become more frequent, he begins to prioritize her needs above his own. This continual compromise severely impacts his emotional well-being. Instead of feeling fulfilled by his work and friendships, Nolan experiences mounting stress and anxiety, driven by the constant expectation to comply with Jennifer's demands. The complexity of these dynamics is further underscored by the cognitive dissonance that arises within victims of manipulation. The pleasant facade Jennifer initially presented, crafted through charm and friendliness, conflicts with the growing feelings of resentment that Nolan begins to harbor. He wants to maintain the friendship, but simultaneously feels his boundaries are being overstepped. This internal struggle can lead to confusion and self-blame, often causing victims to doubt their perceptions and rationalize the manipulator's behavior. Psychological research supports this idea, as studies show that individuals who fear conflict or strive to maintain social harmony are particularly vulnerable to boundary violations. The more Nolan accommodates Jennifer's demands, the more entrenched he becomes in the cycle of compliance. He may believe that his responses are normal and that anyone in his position would act similarly. This normalization of manipulation further distorts his reality, creating a barrier to recognizing the toxic patterns at play. Understanding how manipulators identify and exploit their targets is crucial for self-defense. Many individuals fail to see the subtle indications of manipulation, opting instead to focus on maintaining the relationship or pleasing the other person. As this pattern solidifies, the psychological toll compounds, ultimately leading to feelings of despair and isolation. As we move forward in this chapter, it is essential to recognize that knowledge of these tactics is the first step toward resistance. By uncovering the mechanisms through which boundaries are breached and how targets are manipulated, individuals can fortify themselves against these emotional entanglements. Awareness is empowering. It provides the tools necessary to set and maintain significant boundaries, thus preserving personal integrity and emotional health. In the next section, we will delve into the escalation of control that manipulators often employ, examining how initially harmless negotiations can spiral into a suffocating cycle of dependency. Understanding these patterns is vital for anyone looking to reclaim their agency and cultivate healthy relationships rooted in respect and self-awareness. By shedding light on these cycles, we empower ourselves and others to ascend from the shadows of manipulation and into a space where autonomy and respect flourish. Breaking free from the dark influence of manipulative individuals requires a proactive and strategic approach rooted in self-empowerment. A powerful practical counter-strategy is to establish and maintain firm boundaries. Setting boundaries allows you to communicate your needs assertively while simultaneously protecting your emotional space from intrusive or manipulative behavior. Understanding that you have the right to dictate how others engage with you is fundamental to regaining control over your life. To implement this strategy effectively, start by reflecting on your personal limits. Take time to identify specific areas where you feel uncomfortable or violated, whether it's your time, energy, or emotional resources. For example, if a friend frequently interrupts your personal time with last-minute requests, recognize the toll that constant obligation takes on your well-being. Once you have identified these boundaries, practice articulating your needs clearly and assertively. You could say, "I value our friendship, but I need to set aside time for myself. Moving forward, please give me a heads up before asking for help." Trusting your instincts is equally crucial in this process. Your gut feelings often serve as warning signs when someone is infringing upon your boundaries. If an interaction feels uncomfortable or leaves you feeling drained, pay attention to that sensation. Often, manipulators feed back into uncertainty and self-doubt. They thrive when you question your feelings or hesitate to assert your needs. Learning to trust your intuition can help you regain clarity in interactions that otherwise warp your perception of reality. Moreover, keeping a journal where you document instances of boundary violations can illuminate the frequency and patterns of these occurrences in your relationships. Writing down your experiences not only enhances self-awareness, but reinforces your feelings and instincts as valid. Over time, you'll recognize patterns that may have previously escaped your notice, empowering you to take action when necessary. Remember, asserting your boundaries is not an act of selfishness. It is an affirmation of your self-worth. Cultivating self-respect will help you maintain relationships that are healthy and balanced. Support those relationships that honor your boundaries and invest your time and energy in them while creating space between yourself and those who continue to encroach upon your emotional resources. Sometimes this may mean reevaluating certain relationships that no longer serve your well-being. As this chapter concludes, understand that comprehending and implementing the power of boundaries can act as a formidable shield against emotional manipulation. Awareness of your right to maintain personal space is an empowering realization that fosters resilience against boundary violators. Knowing how to protect yourself against manipulation is essential. It marks the beginning of self-empowerment in your journey to reclaim your autonomy. In the next chapter, we will delve into the challenging dynamics of escalation in manipulative relationships. You will learn how small, seemingly harmless violations can evolve into serious cycles of control, trapping victims in patterns of abuse and dependence. Recognizing these escalation patterns is crucial in preventing further erosion of your emotional health. As you continue on this enlightening journey, consider subscribing to Stealth Psychology for ongoing insights, liking this video, and sharing your thoughts and suggestions on future topics that interest you. Armed with knowledge and practical tools, you can confidently navigate your relationships and ensure that manipulation has no place in your life. With awareness comes the power to resist control. Once you grasp these tactics, you will stand firm in your strength, determined never to be controlled in the same way again. Chapter 7. Reclaiming Power. Healing Beyond Narcissistic Influence. Imagine a bustling office environment where team members collaborate closely. Among them is Mia, a dedicated employee whose enthusiasm and initiative have always made her a standout colleague. However, alongside her is Keith, a manipulative individual who expertly masks his destructive nature behind a veneer of charm. His ultimate goal is to exert emotional control over Mia, ensuring she remains reliant on him for validation and direction. As he skillfully undermines her confidence through subtle put-downs and contradicts her ideas in meetings, Mia begins to feel increasingly trapped in a cycle of self-doubt. Initially, Mia perceives Keith's behavior as helpful guidance. When he says, I know you're trying your best, but maybe we should stick to my ideas. It feels like constructive feedback. However, these moments add up, creating an environment where Mia's contributions are consistently minimized. Keith's manipulation spins a web of emotional control, making Mia question her abilities and stifling her professional growth. Unfortunately, like many victims of emotional exploitation, she often fails to recognize the manipulation until the psychic toll becomes unbearable, leaving her feeling spent and powerless. This gradual erosion of self-worth is common among individuals entangled with narcissistic influencers. Psychological research indicates that sustained exposure to manipulative tactics leads to increased vulnerability to anxiety, depression, and a distorted self-image. Unbeknownst to Mia, each time she dismisses her feelings or seeks Keith's approval, she reinforces her dependency on him. This pattern not only compromises her emotional well-being, but also hinders her decision-making abilities, as she becomes conditioned to adhere to his expectations. Furthermore, the repercussions extend beyond individual struggles. They reverberate through personal relationships. Mia gradually withdraws from her support network, believing her friends and family might not understand the pressures she faces at work. A sense of isolation sets in, further entrenching her connection to Keith. Despite the world around her offering warmth and validation, Mia chooses to remain enmeshed in a situation that continuously depletes her spirit. Recognizing the subtle psychological shifts that occur when one is manipulated is crucial for healing. Mia's story is a testament to the importance of acknowledging feelings of discomfort. The moments of inconsistency in Keith's praise or the nagging feeling that something is off should alert her to the possibility of emotional manipulation. By fostering self-awareness, Mia can begin to unearth the truth about her situation and reclaim her sense of power. Understanding this complex dynamic may be unsettling, yet it reveals a hidden truth that many experience but fail to articulate. The realization that one's reality has been shaped by another's manipulation is the first step toward liberation and healing. This journey requires courage and a willingness to confront the discomfort that comes with change. As we transition into the next section of this chapter, we will explore practical strategies for reclaiming personal power after experiencing narcissistic influence. We will outline ways for victims to reconnect with their own identities, prioritize emotional well-being, and establish boundaries that fortify their personal and professional lives. Knowledge and awareness pave the way for transformation, empowering individuals to rise above manipulation and embrace a more authentic self. Your journey to reclaiming your power begins with understanding the tactics used against you. And by doing so, you will be better equipped to heal and flourish beyond narcissistic influence, reclaiming your narrative and redefining your life on your terms. The impact of narcissistic influence on individuals can be deeply damaging, especially concerning emotional well-being, decision-making, relationships, and self-esteem. Victims often find themselves trapped in a cycle of self-doubt and confusion, adversely affecting their ability to function in various aspects of life. The emotional toll can manifest as heightened anxiety, persistent sadness, or an underlying sense of inadequacy. Consider the case of Thomas, who found himself working alongside a compelling yet manipulative coworker, Lisa. Initially, Thomas was drawn to Lisa's charm and apparent support. She frequently praised his skills, making him feel valued. However, as their working relationship developed, Lisa began to undermine his contributions. During team meetings, she would subtly overshadow Thomas's ideas, redirecting the conversation to highlight her own. This manipulation eroded Thomas's confidence, leading him to question his own abilities. He increasingly hesitated to voice ideas, resulting in a significant decline in his emotional state. At the same time, Thomas developed anxiety about presenting ideas, which negatively impacted his performance and his relationship with the team. Psychological research indicates that individuals in a subservient position often experience cognitive dissonance. In other words, they struggle to reconcile the positive initial feelings toward the manipulator with the reality of their undermining behavior. Thomas faced this internal conflict repeatedly, wanting to trust Lisa while grappling with the negative emotional fallout of her actions. This dissonance can lead to a distorted self-image, where the victim may internalize the manipulator's negative messages, believing they are unworthy or incompetent. The relational dynamics can become extremely complicated. Friends and loved ones might notice changes in behavior, including isolation or withdrawal, as victims like Thomas distance themselves to process the emotional strain. The growing dependence on the manipulator further complicates the situation, as the victim may rationalize the negative behavior or convince themselves that addressing it will damage the relationship. This tendency to excuse manipulative behaviors detrimentally impacts relationships with others, causing isolation and limiting the victim's support network. Understanding why individuals fall for these narcissistic tactics is essential for breaking free. Many victims possess strong empathetic traits that attract narcissists seeking emotional manipulation. Their desire for connection often supersedes their instincts. They may feel responsible for the manipulator's happiness and adopt an accommodating stance, which only serves to reinforce the manipulator's control. The cycle of emotional exploitation thrives on this dependency, causing victims to ignore their feelings of discomfort in favor of maintaining a semblance of harmony. Recognizing these patterns and dynamics is crucial for anyone recovering from narcissistic influence. Awareness is empowering. It allows individuals to confront their feelings, understand the destructive cycle they are caught in, and gradually reclaim their sense of identity and belonging. As this section draws to a close, we will next explore the hidden warning signs that many people overlook when it comes to identifying narcissistic behaviors. Understanding these signs is critical for safeguarding emotional health and avoiding further entanglement in manipulative relationships. By honing your ability to recognize these red flags, you will be better prepared to defend against emotional exploitation and prioritize your well-being, effectively breaking free from the chains of manipulation. Your journey towards empowerment and clarity begins with this understanding, leading you away from the influence of narcissists and toward a more fulfilling, authentic life. Manipulators, particularly covert narcissists, possess a keen ability to identify their targets through careful observation and psychological insight. They often focus on individuals who exhibit traits such as high empathy, emotional sensitivity, and a strong desire for connection and approval. These characteristics create prime opportunities for emotional exploitation, as the manipulator can exploit the target's vulnerabilities for their own benefit, often without the target's conscious awareness. For instance, let's consider the case of Aaron, a compassionate teaching assistant working in a university setting. From the outset, Alex, a fellow faculty member with covert narcissistic tendencies, spots Aaron's eagerness to please and her desire to be liked. Using charm and flattery, he quickly ingratiates himself with her, establishing a facade of friendship. At first, this relationship seems beneficial. Alex offers guidance on navigating academia, which Aaron finds invaluable. However, once he assesses her emotional needs, Alex begins to exploit this bond, frequently undermining her confidence by suggesting that her ideas are inferior or that she is overly emotional. The psychological shifts that occur as a result of Alex's manipulation are subtle yet significant. Aaron initially feels empowered by their friendship, but as Alex continually reframes her ideas with condescending remarks, her confidence starts to wane. Each instance of perceived criticism chips away at her self-esteem, leading her to rely more heavily on Alex's approval for validation. This dependency manifests in a vicious cycle. The more Aaron seeks affirmation from Alex, the more he subtly undermines her contributions, fortifying the power imbalance in their relationship. Psychological research highlights how this dynamic creates cognitive dissonance in victims. Aaron may oscillate between admiration for Alex and frustration at her own feelings of inadequacy. When friends or colleagues question her submission to Alex's opinions, she might dismiss their concerns, believing that she simply needs to become more competent in her role to earn his respect. This rationalization perpetuates the manipulative cycle as Aaron continues to accept Alex's treatment without question, ultimately leading her to feel isolated from her peers who might offer the support she needs. Understanding how manipulators identify and exploit their targets is critical for anyone navigating their relationships. Covert narcissists excel at using emotional intelligence to find individuals who are particularly vulnerable to such tactics. Erin's achieved compassion makes her a desirable target, but her inability to recognize the manipulation keeps her trapped. Over time, victims like Erin may begin to internalize the negative feedback, leading to an unhealthy self-perception marked by self-doubt and hesitance in making decisions. Awareness of these tactics is crucial for self-defense and emotional survival. Identifying the patterns of manipulation can prevent individuals from becoming ensnared in duplicity. Erin's journey demonstrates the significance of recognizing those subtle shifts when someone is trying to assert power over another, urging readers to analyze their relationships for similar dynamics. As we progress into the next part of this chapter, we will delve deeper into the escalation of control tactics that covert narcissists often employ, examining how those small manipulations can evolve into more entrenched cycles of psychological dominance. By grasping these patterns, you will arm yourself with the knowledge needed to resist and ultimately break free from these damaging cycles, safeguarding your emotional health and well-being. Understanding these dynamics is invaluable for maintaining your autonomy and ensuring that your relationships are healthy and mutually beneficial. Breaking free from the psychological grip of covert narcissism requires a proactive approach centered around the establishment of firm boundaries and self-awareness. A vital counter-strategy is to engage in the practice of assertiveness, allowing you to voice your needs confidently while protecting your emotional space. Understanding that you have the right to set limits is the first step in reclaiming your power. To implement this strategy effectively, begin by recognizing the areas in your life where boundaries are vulnerable to manipulation. This could include situations at work, within friendships, or in familial relationships. Reflect on your feelings when others overstep these boundaries. Are there moments that leave you feeling drained, anxious, or uncomfortable? Acknowledging these emotional responses is crucial. It indicates that your limits are being tested. Once you've identified your boundaries, it's essential to articulate them clearly and assertively. For instance, if a colleague frequently makes last-minute demands that disrupt your schedule, address it directly by saying, "I need to adhere to my existing commitments, so I cannot accommodate requests at the last minute." Such statements reinforce your commitment to your own well-being and create a clearer expectation for others. Assertiveness is not about being aggressive. Rather, it is a form of self-care that conveys respect for both yourself and the individuals you engage with. Trusting your instincts plays a critical role in this process, especially when navigating the complexities of relationships marked by manipulation. Recognize that your emotions serve as valuable signals. If you feel uneasy about an interaction, allow yourself to explore that discomfort. Covert narcissists thrive on ambiguity and uncertainty, using them to distort perceptions. Regaining clarity is essential for breaking free from their influence. Journaling can serve as a powerful tool for enhancing emotional awareness and self-reflection. By documenting your experiences and feelings, you create a space where you can articulate your thoughts and accurately assess relationship dynamics. Over time, patterns will emerge that clarify how your boundaries have been violated and where you can assert yourself more effectively. Use your journal to evaluate the emotional exchanges you have. Identify moments when you felt undermined or invalidated, and strategize how you can respond to similar situations in the future. Emotional clarity is key to affirming your needs and maintaining those boundaries. This process empowers you to move forward with confidence. Surround yourself with supportive individuals who respect your limits, as they can provide validation and affirmation of your journey toward reclaiming power. Engage in conversations with trusted friends about your experiences, discussing how they navigate similar situations. As you empower yourself through assertiveness and clarity, recognize that stepping into your truth can be both liberating and strengthening. Understanding and implementing these strategies fundamentally shifts the dynamics of your relationships. Once you grasp these tactics, you develop resilience against manipulation, transforming your interactions into ones marked by respect, understanding, and authenticity. You possess the ability to reclaim your agency and protect your emotional space. No longer will you be vulnerable to the machinations of covert narcissists or any form of psychological manipulation. Empowered by knowledge, you can navigate your relationships with a newfound sense of strength and control, ensuring that your voice is heard and your boundaries respected. Embrace your power, for you are capable of fostering connections that uplift and validate, rather than undermine and control. As we conclude this journey through the intricate dynamics of psychological manipulation, we have explored the insidious tactics employed by covert narcissists and the profound effects they can have on our emotions, self-esteem, and relationships. We have examined the importance of recognizing emotional hooks, setting firm boundaries, and the need for self-awareness in order to reclaim power from those who seek to exploit our vulnerabilities. By understanding these tactics and implementing effective counter-strategies, you empower yourself to safeguard your emotional well-being and foster healthier connections that honor your individuality. Thank you for taking the time to engage with this material. Your commitment to understanding and breaking free from manipulation is commendable. If you found this content valuable, please consider liking this video, sharing your thoughts in the comments, and subscribing to the channel. Your support helps us continue to provide insights that can aid others on their journey toward emotional resilience and authenticity. Together, let's create a community where awareness leads to empowerment and where we can all thrive in relationships characterized by respect and understanding.